Morning. How's it going this morning? I wanted to make a video today about, I guess to some degree it's about like health and survival, which is obviously a bit, maybe an odd topic, but maybe it's not really about that either. I don't really know. But I'm going to get into it. I think I'm like a pattern-seeking organism. And maybe that's what humans are. Maybe that's what all creatures are. And they're looking for patterns to a degree try and predict the future. And maybe that's a uniquely human thing because of humans' awareness of time, or at least modern humans' awareness of what they think time is. So I'm to some degree like bound by trying to predict things, and trying to anticipate what might happen, and making decisions in the present to either create future things or avoid future things. And I think that's really that prediction thing seems to come up a lot when I think about health. How much of things what conditions I'm trying to create for the future or avoid in the future. You see that? I've been getting really good at throwing Ernest's ball in this flinger to myself and catching it back in this little cup. I wonder if you can see me doing it. Hopefully you can see me. Oh, I got it. Yes, it's way easier when it's sandy. Right, last one, Ernest, last one. I don't quite know where I was going with that. Basically what it feels like is I'm constantly looking for the ideal way that humans could live or should live or something. And I don't know. Don't quite know where I'm going with this. I know where I'm trying to get to, but I'm like meandering and the navigation feels muddy currently. So maybe I'll just start at the end. Like I said, I look for patterns in terms of human behavior, in terms of how to live, in terms of consistencies. And these patterns I've decided to call maybe rather, I don't know, piously or something, the consistencies of healthy human culture. And maybe that sounds a bit too fundamental or too like intense, but that's kind of what I'm looking for, I suppose. I'm not interested in like, I don't think there are any new problems to solve. Let's put it that way. I think there are new conditions, but I think any problems we face can be solved with generally pretty timeless methods. So instead of looking for a new way to solve a problem, say take the problem of health, I think a lot of these things are built into a human life, let's say. And now, what are these consistencies of healthy human culture? Well, what does health even mean? I think most deeply health means enjoying the day, just having a not even having a good day, just having like a normal day, like right in the middle, a neutral, non-extreme day, where you just are with friends and family, where you just eat kind of decent local food, and you get a lot of sleep and hang out in the sun. Maybe that seems pretty peak to me, and that, to me at least, represents like human ideal. So what are some of these consistencies of healthy human culture? Well, these consistencies aren't a list of shoulds, and they're not, and this is just my own framework, is my own theory, they're not shoulds, they're not like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not like tickets to health, but they are fundamentals of human existence, in my opinion, that when removed, things start to get weird. And I think particularly in modern Western culture, so many of these things have been removed, and therefore things get weird. So health and the good life, to me, is no longer about like, how do I solve this problem of life, but just reintroducing some of these fundamental pillars. Now, what are these fundamental pillars? I think one of them says around food. I think weird stuff starts to happen when humans have a completely separated relationship with food. And now what does separated relationship with food mean? Now, when we have amnesia around where food comes from, what food is, and we forget that it's part of a cyclical experience with other beings, be that plant or animal, if you'd like to make that distinction. So I feel that one of the fundamental pillars for me is to have some portion of my diet be food that I have a direct hands-on relationship with. Now, that might be growing, that might be helping out with someone else's allotment, that might be foraging, that might be fishing, that might be hunting, that might be, maybe it's even like pickling and things like that. But having a much closer relationship to the food, that doesn't have to be all of your diet. I think it's impossible for that to be all of your diet in the 21st century, particularly in Britain. But a degree of your food to act as a reminder, to break some of that amnesia around like what food is. And I think the closer we can get to that, probably the more fundamental that pillar becomes. Come, good boy, come on. Lots of horses. Good boy. You drop that ball. You gonna drop it. So yeah, that's number one, like food. Having a close relationship with at least a small proportion of your diet. That might just be growing something on your windowsill. This might sound like an unusual one, but I think pretty weird stuff in culture starts to happen once you get rid of intergenerational living. I think being closely acquainted with people of multiple generations, scenarios where 4-year-olds can hang out with 80-year-olds, I think that's hugely significant for the enjoyment and health of the day for 4-year-olds and 80-year-olds and all ages. You know what I mean? Like it goes both ways. And I think that's a fundamental pillar that's lost from a lot of modern culture. That's not to say you've got to live in the same house or anything like that. I don't know what that needs to look like. I'm not here with any answers. But it's a theory that I have that weird stuff starts to happen once you get rid of that fundamental aspect of human life, which I deem as a fundamental aspect of human life. I think it's really important for people of each generation, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 even maybe, to be in relationship and actually casual relationship. I don't necessarily always mean in some kind of ceremonious relationship, in the sense that, maybe you just meet up just at Christmas or just for a national holiday or something, but where, you can be in that really relaxed, casual relationship with people. Doesn't just have to be your family, but just people of all sorts of generations, so that you get this cross-pollination between generations, so you can see the changes between generations, but maybe more importantly the similarities and what things haven't changed and what things are circular. What else? Again, I think pretty weird stuff starts to happen once you become completely detached from plant medicine. Now, I'm not someone who's done any deep plant medicine journeys myself. Definitely nothing like hallucinogenic or anything like that, But it seems that most healthy human culture around the world, who has some idea of, when I say healthy human culture, what I mean by that are groups of individuals who understand regeneration effectively, where they sit in a wider ecosystem, so they can take enough but not so much that it keeps them in a cycle of destruction. From what I've observed, it's rare to find communities like this who don't have a relationship with plant medicine. Some degree of their culture involves ego dissolution. Where's your ball gone, Ernest? Where's your ball? Bring it here. Oh, it's there. Bring it here. And like I say, that doesn't have to be like really far out ego dissolution experiences. Medicine takes many forms. It doesn't just have to be that transcendental state. But plant medicine of the land you're on. And that takes me on to the next one, which is like an awareness of the plants, the plant beings. Come on, bring the ball. Come on. Come on, bring it. Let's go. Come on, bring it. Bring it, let's go. Bring it, come on. Bring it, come on, let's go. Come on, now. Now, let's go. Ernest, now, bring it. Come on, let's go. Bring it here. Bring it here, good boy. Bring it here. Drop it. Come on, let's go. Yeah, the other plant beings, maybe the non-medicinal one, the ones if such a thing even exists. I don't think it does really. But, by the way, that's not to say that there aren't poisonous plants or plants that can do you great damage. But the ones that are edible, it's virtually all medicine anyway. Even the poisonous ones are medicinal to varying degrees. Anyway, that's a tangent. What I mean by that is one of the reasons I started learning about the plants around me, not just from a foraging perspective and wanting to feed myself, it is because I enjoy plants and I enjoy learning about the natural world around me. But maybe more fundamentally than that, I couldn't believe that look, kestrel. Love kestrels. I couldn't believe that I didn't know what all these plant beings were. I must have been like one of the first generations of humans ever to not know that, to not have those relationships with the plants. And I was like, that seems so fundamental to human existence. Our relationship to plants, for food, for medicine, for guidance. It represents a pillar that has been there for our whole life. And how can I claim that I feel confused, disconnected, unwell, whatever the list of things are, I don't even know what the word is, if I haven't maintained that fundamental pillar? And that's not to shame or to point finger at anyone or anything necessarily, but just like, I don't think you can remove such a fundamental thing out of any being's existence that they've evolved alongside and expect health, expect clarity or something. So yeah, having an understanding of the plant beings around us, not just for medicine, but for just to know them, just to know who they are. We're still rolling. Where are we at? 15 minutes. What other ones? Sitting in circle. I know that might also sound quite abstract, and it's not any more complicated than that. Every 2 weeks, there's a men's circle gathering in the community, in the town that I'm in. It's free. Anyone can turn up. Just sit around a fire and we talk. But it's the difference between talking in that space and talking in our day-to-day lives is that everyone's carved out those 2 hours for ceremony, effectively. Not that it's even necessarily that ceremonious, but it's like it brings with it some degree of sacredness, I suppose, where people are going to be listened to, and you're going to be heard by upwards of 5 people about the particular thing, whether that's a celebration or a pain or a worry or whatever you want to bring. And for me personally, I find having that as a consistency in my monthly schedule, twice a month, knowing that even if I don't have time in the rest of my life to maybe maintain some of those social and community ties, particularly with men, there is a place for me every 2 weeks where I can witness others in their stuff, and I can be witnessed in mine. And that carving out intentional space to listen and to be listened to see and to be seen, that feels so fundamental to me in mixed spaces, in men's spaces, in women's spaces, and all types of spaces, whatever the spaces look like for you. I don't think it's necessarily gender specific, although I think there's value to having some of them gendered to some degree, for some of the specific details that people go through, and particular things that people navigate. But I think more importantly than whatever gender combination it is, it's more about the intentional sacred space of being listened to by a large group in circular form. And that to me is a particularly fundamental pillar. And once again, I think weird stuff starts to happen when you remove that pillar from culture. What other ones are there? There are loads, and some are like varying thicknesses of pillar. But this is another one that maybe is looked at, maybe, I feel almost weird saying it because it feels maybe not as important. But fire, I think particularly for people who live in the temperate regions and beyond, as in non-tropical environments, particularly through the winter. Now, fire takes many shapes. It's not just like a fire pit in the garden or a log burn or anything like that. It could be a candle, it could be whatever. It could even be the type of orangey light that is emitted by flame, which I think to some degree is a small compromise, but I think it's doing a similar job. Fire is such a fundamental part of human life for humans, particularly in temperate regions. I would say all over the world, but specifically for temperate regions, because it goes beyond just cooking and is about hearth, about community, about warmth, all of those things. And particularly through the winter, like, I lean on fire more and more and more as a place of grounding. And once again, not dissimilar to learning about like plants and things like that. Like, if we've had this thing that we've evolved alongside, grown alongside, become humans alongside for, not just the span of Homo sapien existence on Earth, but many more upright walking apes before that. I think I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's something like 1 million years worth of upright walking apes having fire, which is long before Homo sapiens. So we've got this fundamental pillar that is basically consistent to the community group for hundreds of thousands of years, acts as the place to cook, the place for warmth, the place for safety. It's pretty boggy through here. I'm gonna have to roll up my trousers. Yeah, if you get rid of that, this being, fire is a being. It has its own alive thing. You take that away, particularly through the winter months, for humans who have only really lived without consistent relationship with fire for the last few thousand years. Once again, I think pretty weird stuff happens. I can't necessarily say specifically what that weird stuff is for any of these pillars. I don't have that information. I probably never will. But this is almost like an act of faith, I suppose, these pillars. It's like there's all these things that keep popping up across, whether it be indigenous culture, earth-based culture, even places like maybe blue zone culture, like where people have like long lifespans. That appear to, be so deeply embedded in the enjoyment and health of human life that it's just very weird when you take them away. What else? Another pillar. Music and dance. I think that one is massive. Music and dance. Not because you're good at music or good at dancing. Let's leave that at the door. But because it's an expression of humanity, fundamentally. Like, how can we expect joy and health when music and dance are such major aspects of what it means to be human? And for so many of us, they're not in our lives at all because of the way that what we've turned music and dance into, something to be good at, something to perform rather than something to be. And I don't necessarily mean listening to music. I mean playing it. I mean being part of the noise, whether it's on a drum or whatever, melodic instrument, whatever it is, using your voice. And again, getting up and then moving your body to those sounds. What could be more fundamental than that? And again, that's a pattern. That's a pillar to me of what it means to be human. And if that isn't in my life to some degree, basically I feel like maybe I shouldn't be surprised if stuff feels weird. And of course it goes without saying, like movement as well. Obviously movement's a fundamental pillar. Maybe even so fundamental there's no point bringing it up here. I think they're most of the ones that I think about. I'm going to take a moment to see if anything else, any other ones are there that want to come through right now. Classic, as soon as I turned off the camera, I thought of another one. And this kind of dichotomy or polarity between personal space and group space. And I think a lot of people, myself included, feel like they struggle to be by themselves. They don't want to be by themselves, and they also, I don't want to be by myself, to speak from the I, and also find it hard to be truly in connection with people when I'm in a group state, in a place of community. That doesn't necessarily feel easy. So I feel like we speak a lot about how modern humans suffer from a lack of community, but I think we also suffer from a lack of alone time. Like, We don't have a broad enough spectrum of those two things. When we're in a state of community, we're often not in a state of connection. And when we're by ourselves, we're often so scared to be by ourselves, or so resistant to be by ourselves, that we don't really want to be that either. So we're like caught between a rock and a hard place. And I think there's been this fundamental flow for humans to move between personal space and group space, not to pick one or the other as the place to land. But I think this takes the form of things like vision quests. I think it takes the form of things like meditation. So much of life is about doing, and the doing is the play. The doing is the thing we've come here to do, And I'm not here to bash doing. Doing is great, but doing is only good, really, or doing is only fun, at least I personally find, against the backdrop of doing nothing. And if I'm in a constant state of doing, I get burnt out. So I need to contrast that with nothingness, with solo nothingness, for the doing to still feel as if it's a playful experience rather than a duty. And I think this is where, time alone in the wilderness, in the forms like vision quests, you go away for a few days from the community, so you can come back and you can bring the gold from that solo experience, and you can reintegrate back into the culture, the marketplace, the group, whatever that might be. And one serves the other. It's not about which one's better, being a hermit by yourself in the woods, or being, the person in the middle of the market, drinking beers and selling things, and eating all the food and joining in. It's both, and I think it's part of human existence to move between the two, and there's gold in both. And I think in a lot of cultures, that flow between group space and personal space is fundamental to that, Of course, this might even take the form things like the form of weekends to some degree. I think weekends serve that. And in the modern world, a lot of people who don't work 9 to 5s struggle to have something called a weekend. I certainly do. So there isn't this obvious distinction between what is doing and what is non-doing. And that can lead to burnout. That can lead to no longer rejoicing in the doing side of the polarity. So, meditation is increasingly important for me. Not because meditation is just not doing anything to me. It's a time to watch what's going on rather than take part in what's going on. That's not to say that you don't then go and take part 20 minutes later or a day later or whatever. Not that I meditate for a day. That's not me yet. But the time out is as important as the time in, and I certainly feel like I didn't realise that. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I think things get weird if we don't have that polarity between on and off, and in this particular state of contrasts, the on and the off represents doing and non-doing, and both need to be present, I feel, for an enjoyed, healthy human culture. It's like the strength of community seems only as strong as each member's ability to sit quietly by themselves. That's what it seems like. And if I really want to show up with my full heart and service to the community, I feel like I'm best at that when I can sit quietly by myself. And not to say that I can do that. That's a practice. And after many years of not valuing the non-doing, that muscle's weak relatively to the doing muscle. But the doing muscle also weakens by not taking part in non-doing. So they serve each other, the doing and the non-doing, profoundly. I think that pretty much sums it up for now. And before I wrap this video up, I want to reiterate, this is just my own theory. And from personal experience, the more I bring in these fundamental pillars, the more human my life seems to become, or the more grounded. I don't know even what the word is. I feel just more in my life. It's like they satiate thirsts that I didn't even realize I had. It feels like I'm like clicking into that puzzle piece of being a human, which in so many ways I feel that I don't click into, I guess. Or I feel disconnected from, or something. I don't even know really what the language is. It's almost hard to describe. And I'm not saying that any one of these things will like cure your depression or anxiety or any other mental or physical illness or anything like that. That's not what I mean. It's just a working theory. What I mean is, if there are all these seemingly fundamental aspects of human existence, that I think these things are as fundamental as, you know, having a head or a heart or something, although they're not in my body. They're not a physical manifestation in my body. They're so fundamental to the human community and flow that when you sever those ties and we suffer, it would be no different to cutting off an arm and suffering. In my opinion, it's that, I don't want to say the word serious, that's not what I mean. It's that significant. So before we go around diagnosing and labeling the various problems each one of us have or I have, it might be worth me asking, what are some of these fundamentals that I feel have been consistent in healthy human culture for all of human history, pretty much? And investigate maybe what that could be like to bring into my life in the modern sense, what that would look like. You know, and maybe I know nothing, and maybe this is just a naive thing to say, but it is what I feel, and it's what I think about a lot. And I think when these, I think so many modern humans focus and spend a lot of time thinking about health, because a modern existence in so many ways is so unhealthy. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I have an opinion about whether that should or shouldn't be true or shouldn't be so, but a lot of people seem to suffer with their health, mentally and physically, as a result of the modern world. And I don't think humans, for the majority of human history, have spent much time thinking about whether their life is healthy or not. Life and health were one. And you can say what you want about various life expectancy things and disease and all that kind of stuff, you know. I'm not going to argue that corner or dispute any of those things. But I think we spend a lot more time thinking about health now. Which of course distracts from being in our actual life as well. For me, I find. I spend a lot of time planning to not be unhealthy in the future, and don't really think too much about being where I am today. And yeah. Anyway, that's maybe a weird place to leave it. I'm going to leave it there. Maybe you can think of some other fundamental pillars. Maybe that I've missed, or things that patterns that you've acknowledged in healthy human culture, and maybe things that support you in your own flow in your life. Yeah, that's me. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Lots of love to you all, my friends.